In this video, I'm going to discuss about transportational work of streams. So, river streams transport materials, the sediments whichever are there in the whichever in the riverbed. So, transport depending upon the size of the material and the river velocity. These eroded materials of the river is transported from one place to another place, and transporting capacity of the river depends upon the size of the load and the velocity of the river. If the size of the load, if this size of the load is optimum, so it transport to a longer distance. Whereas if the size of the load is more and it deposits in the shorter distance itself, it starts depositing. Whereas the size of the load is very less and its transportation capacity also is going to be more depending upon the velocity of the river. So velocity of the river also changes with the channel gradient. If the channel gradient is it has a steep channel gradient, the velocity of the river also is going to be more. And the form and nature of river valley floors and valley walls. So for the narrow valley, so it has both the side obstructions are there, but the velocity of the river will be more. Then it also transforms, it starts transporting more materials. And so, if it is straight, the river course of the river is straight, then it can easily transport more material. If it is meandering, it can the capacity reduces as it deposits near the convex slope of the river. So where it deposits, because the velocity decreases there and volume of water discharge, if the volume of water also is more, and the river velocity also increases. So Gilbert's sixth power of law, let us understand. This law was given by Gilbert. So he gave this law to explain about the stream transportation, and he propounded it based on relationship between stream velocity and its transporting power. So the law this law states that the transportation power of the stream is proportional to the sixth power of the air velocity. So stream velocity and transportation power. With these two factors, he explains about the capacity of the river to transport the sedimental materials. So transportation power is directly proportional to stream velocity, the sixth power of the stream velocity. So next, let us how the river transports the material is by four ways. So by traction, by saltation, by suspension, and by solution. So large boulders, pebbles are rolled along the riverbed. So say this is the Himalaya, this is a hill is there, from the hill the river is originating. So large boulders it is carrying, because the channel gradient also is more, and when it is coming, it's flowing through this plain. But these boulders it is rolled along the riverbed. So the velocity also is more, it's rolling like this, and it's coming and it's falling here. And above this, after this part, these boulders can't be carried, because the channel gradient decreases, velocity of the river decreases. So these are deposited here, because large boulders, pebbles are rolled, because they have a weight of these boulders and pebbles are very high, because of the gravitational force they settle down on the riverbed. That's why they are rolled along the riverbed depending upon the velocity of the river. Saltation. Through saltation, small pebbles and stones are bounced along the riverbed. Say if small pebbles are carried from this here is carried, but it bounces like this, but it can be carried along the plains also to a longer distance. But large boulders can be carried along the plain, or transported in the plain region, because they settle down directly on the riverbed, because of the gravitational force, or because of the weight of those materials. But these, through saltation, small pebbles and stones are bounced along the riverbed even in the plains. And through suspension, fine light material is carried along the river. So through suspension, so the materials are fine materials, they just suspend in the river water itself. So when the river is flowing along the river, so these materials are carried, so it can be carried to a longer distance than these two materials. And solution, because of solution, so here these minerals which can be dissolved in the water or dissolved in the river water, so they are carried along in solution, they can be carried to a longer distance. Wherever the wherever the river flows. So if there is no obstruction, so it can be carried to any distance, to a longer distance. So through suspension and solution, the river carries the sediments to a longer distance, because the sediments are fine sediments. As the solution, they get dissolved in the water itself, so it is carried. But traction, so through traction it can carry to a shorter distance. But saltation, when comparing it with saltation, so saltation is much, it can carry the small pebbles longer to a longer distance than the by traction method. And by these ways, river transport materials of different size from one place to another size. So these, all these things depends upon the sedimentary load and size and the river velocity. So all these factors help in the transport